What's going on, guys? This is the RPO College Football Podcast. I'm your humble host, Jerome Jones. We got my man Ray Roberts right here. We got my man Ben. Ray, how you doing today?
I'm good, Jerome. How about you guys?
I'm great. I'm great. I'm really blessed and happy to see you guys today. Happy to talk some football. How you doing today, Ben?
I'm doing good. Happy to be here and excited to dig into some of these great prospects.
Yeah, definitely talk about some great prospects today. First and foremost, we're going to be talking with wide receivers today. It's a deep class. But before we get into that, we just want to recap everybody that last week we had our mock draft. It was a really fun thing to do. All of us and a couple of other guys got on our mock draft. So if you haven't seen that, go back to our old YouTube channel. You can go in there, search Inside the Hashes. It was our mock draft 1.0. So we're going to try to do that once a month. So if you haven't seen that, go check that out, and we'll do another one this at the end of this month. But today is all about wide receivers, and this is a really deep class. I'm super excited to talk about this class today, guys. But before we get into individual things, give an overall sense of how this draft class is. I want to hear it from you first, Ben. What do you think about this class in general?
It's really interesting because, we have that clear-cut group at the top that I think a lot of us think are going to be those top 10 kind of picks. And then there's a bunch of guys in the next 10 to 15 guys in my rankings that are all guys who probably have, day two grades for me, but just because there's so many of them, a lot of them are probably going to fall down deeper into the draft. So like you said, class is incredibly deep, a lot of talented guys, there's a lot of speed, there's a lot of size, there's a lot of skill. So I'm really interested to see how it all shakes out in April, but all we can do right now is talk about them and just give our thoughts.
Definitely. I think we've been talking about deep wide receiver classes a lot the last couple of years, but you seen how last year turned out. There's a lot of really good wide receivers. One guy rookie of the year, and then we got I'm sorry, he almost got rookie of the year, but he broke rookie record. And then we had some guys that were really promising and looked really good for this year. I want to know how you feel about this class as well, Ray. Following up a deep class from last year.
Like Ben said, man, there's depth everywhere. I could see where teams will get like nice, solid wide receivers up into like the fourth or fifth round. So
definitely excited to talk about this. Let's get right into it, guys. I want to talk about your top 5 wide receivers going into the 2019 draft. Ray, I'm gonna start with you. I want to hear your list. See who you got at the top, and let's get right into it.
Well, okay. Well, number one, I got Jamar Chase from LSU. Obviously, he opted out this year to not play, but his stats last year were like crazy. Over 80 receptions, 1,780 yards, 20 touchdowns. He averaged over 20 yards reception. I mean, they were crazy, man. The kid is a stud. I mean, I don't want to hold it against guys that opted out this year. I wish he would have played this year. It would have given me a better barometer of how good he really is. But if you go off of last year, he has the size. He's a solid, 6 foot, 6'1", 210 pounds or so. I mean, that's why I have him over maybe a couple of the other guys. And I see more of a solid frame on him than Devonta Smith, who I actually have third. I mean, I love Devonta Smith. He's a talented kid, but I'm a little afraid of a guy that weighs about 170 pounds soaking wet. I'm not going to lie about it. But number 2, I have Jalen Waddle. I love Waddle. I think that really, unlike Jamar Chase and Devonta Smith, where I think you can jam them at the line of scrimmage and they're going to have a hard time getting off of some press coverages, I think Waddle can create separation just with his speed alone. So I have Waddle number 2. I have Devonta Smith number 3. Again, a very talented kid, good athlete, good hands, good route runner. He has everything except for, I think if you press him at the line of scrimmage, you could probably take him off of his route. That's the only thing that scares me. I think best scenario would be he goes to a coach like Sean Payton who will run some, get him in motion and use his route running ability to his strength. Again, I worry about him being pressed to the line of scrimmage, but again, his talent speaks for itself. I mean, I'm not going to take it away. I think that the reason why he got the Heisman was because Waddle got hurt, and a lot of the targets that Waddle would have gotten, he got. Again, that doesn't take away from how good he was. He was amazing. So I still have him third behind the other two. And my number 4 guy is Rashad Bateman. from Minnesota. Again, I love this kid. There's a story that he timed it out at 4.39. If that is the case, I'm really excited about how good of a player he can be. His hands are there. He's a good route runner. He's pretty physical. If he really times it in sub 4.4s, this kid's going to go a lot earlier than I think people think. I know you hate it when I do this, Jerome, but I have a 5A and a 5B. I know you don't like it, but wait until we get to my next one because I have really messed up my next round. But I have Kadarius Toney at number 5A. I have Rondell Moore at 5B. I really like Rondell Moore a little better than Toney, but I think Toney will probably go first because he played this year and his production was there for everybody to see. I think people are going to sleep on Rondell Moore because he didn't play this year, and last year he was hurt most of the year. So his stats, but his 2018 stats, over 100 receptions, 1,300 yards, 12 touchdowns. I mean, they were crazy. And the kid, if you watch this guy work out this year, he is jacked right now. He's primed and ready to go. And again, in the return game, he may be better than all of these guys, really. So that's my 5.
Right with his A and B's, man. Right with his A and B's. Every list, you gotta add that one extra player. I get it. But before we continue, I just want to say thank you for all the viewers in there that's watching this live on YouTube or Facebook or on Twitter right now. So if you have any questions on any receiver that we may be talking about or any receiver that you want to talk about, please put it in the chat room. We do right now currently have a question, but we're going to say that till after Ben takes his turn. But before we even get to that, I'm going to ask Ray some questions real quick. So most experts are flipping Waddle and Devonta. Is it strictly on the size, or is it really like mostly the talent? Because I know Waddle is the more speedier guy, and Jalen's more of the intermediate route running. You know, he do have some speed, but he don't have that elite speed. Is that the reason why you have those two flip like that?
Yeah, that and the thicker frame. Waddle is like a legit 190, at a little over 5'11", closer to 6 foot. I just like him as a guy. Like I said, I think you have a harder time getting your hands on him and pressing him at the line of scrimmage, where if you blink your eye, he's going to run by you. Where we know Devonta Smith is a great route runner, but you still have to do things in motion to get him a free release from the line of scrimmage. Well, Waddle, I don't think you're going to have as easy a time pressing him at the line of scrimmage. That's really the only difference. You can take either one of them, and you're going to get a good football player as far as I'm concerned. So, you know.
All right. Well, let's see if Ben have the same mindset as you, Ray. Ben, let's get into your top 5 receivers. You're on.
So my top 5 does look very similar to Ray's. I do have Jamar Chase up at that one spot. I mean, like Ray was saying, his production during 2019 was even better than Justin Jefferson, who, like you said, Jerome, was almost the Rookie of the Year this year. He was really just absolutely insane. And the physicality that he played with at just 19 years old was special in my mind. I mean, when you have a guy who's making contested catches and playing like a man against boys when he's really a boy against among all the older guys that he was playing against in college, and I think he's just the clear-cut number one. He's going to be really good in the NFL year one. He's going to be able to make a quarterback's life a lot easier. I do have Jalen Waddle at 2 over Devonta Smith at 3 for basically the same reasons that Ray said. And an interesting stat that I found on Waddle was that he had 15 contested catch opportunities while playing at Bama, and he converted 10 of them. So even when he is at that smaller size and one of those smaller receivers, he's shown that he's able to get up there and make those catches that we're expecting out of these bigger receivers. I do have Devonta Smith at 3. And the guy, the name of the game with him is getting open, right? And we saw all throughout the last couple seasons, he had over 3,000 yards, 37 touchdowns over the past 2 years. He gets open, he catches the ball, he converts third downs. It's what he does. His size does present a little bit of issues just because in the NFL, corners do get bigger, they do get longer and faster. So he might get a little bit more of a spotlight on his size and might get a little more amplified. But overall, I think he'll still be very successful. Number 4, I do have Rashad Bateman out of Minnesota. So we're still the same 1 through 4. He has a skill set that I think is not present in a lot of the other top receivers. He's one of the bigger receivers. He's at 6'2", I believe, around 210 pounds. But he's also pretty fast. If he does run that sub 4.40, I could see him moving up into the middle of the first round. Maybe a team that looks for a receiver could trade up and get him. And then number 5 is where I differ a little bit. I have Terrace Marshall out of LSU up at number 5. He's a long-limbed kind of speedster player. He's around 6'3", 200 pounds. And I think that this past year at LSU, he still played very well, given the fact that there was no Justin Jefferson, there was no Jamar Chase, there was no Clyde Edwards-Helaire, no Joe Burrow. He was dealing with inconsistencies in the offensive line. So I think he was still able to produce on a pretty high level despite all that. And if he had a couple other playmakers in that offense and had a little bit more inconsistent quarterback play, I think he would have had a monster season. Maybe not on the level of Devonta Smith, but up there. He would have been talked about as having one of the best seasons in college this year. That was a tough pick for me at 5. I have a couple other guys that are around that range, but I think ultimately he wins out right now for me in that 5 spot.
Nice. I've been hearing a lot of people had Terrace Marshall going a little bit higher than a lot of these receivers lately. So he's a fast riser. So definitely interesting to see that you have him on your top 5. That's really cool. So let's just get into our first comment right here. A commenter right here says, would you guys consider having Pitt, so that's Kyle Pitts from Florida, to tight end, as a better wide receiver in the draft? Better than any receivers in the draft. I apologize. So if you guys haven't seen, Pitts just came out with a unofficial workout, and apparently he ran a 4.57. Pitts ran a 4.57. This guy's going in the top 5 almost. I think he'll be in that range for like an Eagles team right outside the 5 with the with the quarterback situation still. So he might go 5, 6, or 8, especially with that kind of speed. What you guys think of Kyle Pitts? Will he be better than some of these receivers, or would you specifically use him at tight end? I'm gonna start with you, Ray, because I believe you talked about it a little bit in verbatim before.
I mean, I do think he's a better player than any of the receivers in the draft this year. I think it was Jacob last week.
Yeah.
Where the Jacob just said that he would consider him. I don't want to say he's a wide receiver, though. I think if you don't use him in line, flex him out, and you're not taking advantage of his skill set. I think if you put him as a wide receiver out wide all the time, he's going to match up against the team's number 1 corner, and that's not what you want. You want this kid lined up against a safety or a tight end where you can actually use him as a complete mismatch. But I do think he's better than any of the receivers. I would take him higher than any of the receivers in the draft this year. I would.
Ben, what you think?
I'm really on the same page. I think by lining up in that traditional tight end spot and getting him out over the seam, out over the middle, on those out and in routes from the middle of the field, and creating those massive mismatches with linebackers and safeties is really where he's going to thrive the most. That's why he's so productive, right? He's this big, fast guy who's able to run routes really well, and he does have those mismatches to take advantage of. If all of a sudden he moves to the outside and gets matched up against some of these bigger, more polished cornerbacks, they're going to be able to cover him a lot easier, especially early in his career, because he might not have some of the route running polish or the footwork that a lot of the top other wide receivers will have.
Definitely. So yeah, I like Pitts. I think he's going to be one of those guys that, like you guys said, keep him at tight end. He has a solid blocking. Put him in at 12 personnel. Put him in and flex him out at a slot position, so he can just go up and get the ball and use him in the red zone sometimes. Flex him out in the red zone sometimes. Match him up against a linebacker so he can catch over the linebackers or shorter safeties. So I think that it would be kind of a disservice having him a wide receiver because you could do so much different things if you keep him at tight end. That's just my opinion. But
let me say one more thing. Even if you say I'm going to line, because a lot of times teams are going to play nickel and dime if he's out there anyway. So they're going to put a cornerback against him. But what I want to prevent is putting the number 1 corner against him on a down-to-down basis.
That's true.
If he's going against the second or third corner, I'm fine with that. But I don't want the number 1 corner to be out there with this guy on every down base, because then you're not taking advantage of the skill set. You're not.
I agree with that. You wouldn't want to like a Jalen Ramsey, who was a bigger, more faster, guy against him, because he'll probably just eat him up. And then you have, Pitts out there just getting blocked up where you can utilize him against like somebody that's not like a Ramsey. So I totally agree with that, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to our next segment. It is 5 sleeper wide receivers. Now, these are the receivers that may not be getting the hype, may not be getting the talk, but you guys fall in love with them. You want to, spread some light on them, and just say, hey, these receivers are really good too. And again, deep wide receiver class. So I expect that this list was probably easy for you guys. So Ben, we're gonna start with you. Who you got as your sleepers?
So the first guy that I was taking a look at was Trevon Grimes out of Florida. He's a guy that didn't get a lot of attention because they had Kyle Pitts there, they had Kadarius Toney there, and we saw in the SEC championship game, he absolutely torched Patrick Surtain on that 50-yard touchdown. I think he has a lot of potential to eventually rise up on the board with his pre-draft workouts, just because he's a big body receiver. He doesn't have incredible speed, but he does move up the field pretty quickly, and I think that's because he has pretty long strides. So that's going to allow him to attack angles on corners and safeties that are trying to play up on him. And he's really a vertical receiver. He's got a kind of go up and get it style, and he's got strong hands, and he's showed throughout his time at Florida that contested catches is something that he's really strong at. So I'm looking at him to be someone that some teams might target if they're looking for a lot of size on the outside. Another one of the guys that I was thinking about as a sleeper pick is going to be, Amon-Ra St. Brown out of USC. He's someone who has gotten a decent amount of hype throughout the last couple months. I know my friend Jacob is really big on him. He thinks he's a top 10 guy. I'm not sure if I'm quite there on him yet, but he has shown at USC that he's able to play on the slot and on the outside as well. And I think a lot of teams are going to look at that versatility and value it pretty highly. He's really athletic. He's got great body control. He makes a lot of toe tap catches, and his route running is also really polished. So I like him too. Another one of those guys that I think are kind of sleeper picks, Elijah Cooks out of Nevada. Another one of these really big body kind of guys, 6'4", 215 pounds. NFL teams are going to love that size. And once again, he's really athletic. He's able to get up the field really quickly, make quick cuts on routes to kind of throw defensive backs off their angles. And quarterbacks are going to be able to find him really easy on the field and give him chances to go up and get the ball. Massive catch radius, strong hands. In the 2019 season, I believe he had 76 catches, 926 yards, 8 touchdowns. That's great production on a per catch basis. And I think that he was probably going to be a guy that's going to get definitely a later day 3 pick, but he has a kind of potential where with the right coaching and the right scheme, I think he's someone that's going to be really good down the line as a solid, maybe number 2, number 3 wide receiver, like his highest ceiling. Sorry about that. And then one other guy that is not necessarily a receiver, or wasn't a receiver in college, but a lot of NFL draft people and a lot of scouts have been saying he'll be turned into a receiver. I know you're probably thinking Demetric Felton right now, but I'm actually going with Puka Williams out of Kansas.
Ooh, got me. You got me.
He was one of the top running backs in the Big 12 over the last couple of years, rushed for over 1,000 yards each season. And he did decide to sit out most of the 2020 season, which might have hurt his draft stock a little bit. But he's 5'10", 170 pounds, and I think he could be an incredible slot guy in the NFL. Especially at running back, he used a lot of jump cuts, a lot of quick cuts, and really agile between the trenches especially. So I see him as someone who's going to be able to get really good burst off the line, and he's got great hands coming across the middle and maybe even up the seam or even on a wheel route to the outside. So I do like Felton in a similar type role, but I think Puka is another guy that not a lot of people are going to know about.
Wow, you really got me with that. I really thought you were going with Felton on that one, but
I saw your face, and I could tell you were thinking Felton.
Hey, you got Felton. All right. Well, great list. Ray, before you go, I want to know what you think about that list.
Good list. I mean, again, we talk about how deep the wide receiver class. The crazy thing is, I only have one the same as Ben, so that tells you how deep of a class it is. So
I figured, yeah. Okay,
so,
Ray, you're on the clock.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Ben had Terrace Marshall as his number 5. I have him as one of my sleepers. Mm-hmm. I think because this kid probably should be, like Ben said, a first-round talent. But I think because of his production falling, and again, quarterback play wasn't as good. We already know that. He'll probably fall to this day 2, maybe the 2nd or 3rd round. If you get him there, he's a steal without a doubt. Without a doubt, if you get him in the 2nd round, that's a great pick. Get him in the 3rd round, that is a steal. But again, it depends on how you criteria or classify what is a sleeper wide receiver. Again, the kid's a first-round talent, but probably won't get taken in the 1st round. So to me, that's kind of like a sleeper, Mm-hmm. My number 2 is the same as Ben's. Amon-Ra St. Brown good route runner, very fast. This kid, when he wasn't on the field for USC last year, their offense was completely different. I watched them lose a game, USC, because he didn't finish the fourth quarter. And every play they need him to make, he did it. And as soon as he was on the field, they're just a different offense without him on the field. So my number 3 guy is – what was that?
No, good.
I was going to say something. I have Dearmi Brown from North Carolina as my 3rd guy. Again, 6'1", 195. Good football player. As a slot guy, I think 185. As a slot kid, he's going to be productive right away. I do think he needs to get a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger. But I think, again, if you get him in day 3, he's going to be a steal there. And I think he probably will fall to that spot, to be honest with you. And this is where I get a little bit hot touchy, Jenny, Jerome, because I have a bunch of guys here now. I have Dez Williams from Auburn, big physical kid with good hands, can beat press coverage, can do a lot of different things, and not a polished route runner, not fast, but a big physical guy who has better speed than I think people think. I have Tylan Wallace from Oklahoma State, again, 185, 6 foot, ran a 4.39 40, a good football player. And I'm going to go through. I have Mari Rodgers and Nico Collins also. I have like 4A, 4B, 5A, 5B. You know I'm a Nico Collins fan. I think the kid productive fell because their quarterback play is not very good. So
definitely. Ray, you hit on a lot of good guys that I personally like as sleepers. Obviously the Nico Collins one touch home for me because I'm a Michigan fan. Been able to watch him. He opted out this year, so that's kind of a knock on him in a sense. But the kid reminds me of a Michael Pittman Jr. And I think he's even faster than Michael Pittman Jr. And he went in the 2nd round last year. So I think you can get that same kind of production out of him. Unfortunately, Michael Pittman Jr. got injured last year, but I think that Nico Collins can give you that same big body, faster than you think kind of receiver that will get open and be a red zone threat. Tylen Wallace is one of my sleepers, my biggest sleepers in this class. I really like him. I think he might slip into the late 1st rounds if a team really falls in love with him. Again, this is such a deep draft, but Tylen Wallace is one of those sleeper guys that I think like he could go in the 2nd round and be an instant starter. So you might even find him somewhere in the 2nd round just because it is such a deep class. But I think he's going to be an instant starter for you guys. I think he's going to really resonate in the NFL. One other guy I want to kind of point out that I've seen at the Senior Bowl that I think somebody's going to love once they actually get him on the field is Dez Fitzpatrick. I think he really showed me a lot as far as route running, which was one of the issues I had watching him before the Senior Bowl. And I think that like he really displayed a good sense of route running in there, and he has really incredible hands. He caught a ball over a cornerback that was right under him. I think he's one of those high point receivers. Not the fastest guy, but I really enjoy his hands. What you guys think about him as a prospect?
Fortunately, I don't think I've watched enough of his tape yet to have too much an opinion on him, but he's definitely a guy that I'll have to take a look at.
I think he's a good football player. I think, like you said, at senior week, he had a very good senior week. I remember reading and watching some of their practices. He looked really good. I think, again, we keep talking about the depth, man. The depth in this wide receiver class is just ridiculous, man. Like you're gonna get good players in day 3. I have no doubt of that.
Definitely.
I think if you get into Mari Rodgers or Nico Collins, or Dez Williams in the 3rd, like 4th, 5th round, you're getting steals there because them guys are going to play.
Definitely.
Mind if I add one more name to the list, Jerome?
Yeah.
I gotta make sure I mention Elijah Moore out of Ole Miss. I think after watching some of his tape from this past season, he has, I think, the best slot tape of any receiver that I've watched so far from this year's class. He makes just the kind of catches that he makes over the middle remind me. I mean, I'm a Pats fan, so it reminds me of Julian Edelman's prime when he would literally just go across the middle, no fear, no worries about what was in front of him, only eyes on the ball. And that's kind of what he reminds me of. He's a smaller guy, but he's incredibly quick and explosive off the line, and you're not going to find a guy who's willing to put his body on the line over the middle more than him.
Definitely. our guy Johnny Dean, thank you for so much for tuning in with us. He says you guys are giving me plenty of tape to watch. I need to go see how well these guys plant their routes now. Yeah, these guys are you're gonna need some time to watch these guys. There's a lot of good receivers. You should definitely check it out, especially if your team is one of those teams that need a receiver. It's just that much more exciting to see some of these players. So before we get to our last topic, I really quickly had a question, but I think I'm just gonna go because I forgot it literally just that fast. So let's just talk about the next topic. So maybe at the end of that, I'll remember what I was gonna say. So let's get to our top 5 small school guys. So these guys are guys that go to small schools that nobody's really talking about, but you guys really think they can plant themselves in the NFL, and that could be even later as 6th, 7th round that could still produce. We've seen a lot of that last year where small school guys, still contributed on teams. So Ray, I'm gonna start with you on this one. Give us your top 5 small school guys.
Okay, well, again, I'm going with a guy who opted out this year, but had a great 2019 season.
Real quick, Ray, I want to respond to this. Juan, thank you so much for tuning in. He's one of our guys. We literally just got done talking about Dez Fitzpatrick. So once the broadcast ends, you can definitely check that out and see what we said about him. But go ahead, Ray. You can continue. I apologize.
DeMonte Coxey from Memphis, a 6'3", 200-pound guy who, again, in 2019 had over 70 receptions, 1,276 yards, 19 touchdowns, average almost 17 yards of reception. So, again, people are going to – and this is what makes – and this could have been a sleeper guy because people are going to forget about him because he goes to a small school, and his production in 2019 was ridiculous. So, I mean, I think that he's going to be a good player. And, of course, he went to Memphis, and I really like this kid. I think he's probably, as far as talent, a 3rd or 4th round pick, but he'll probably won't go to at least the 4th round. And I think if that happens, you're going to find yourself a nice steal there. A guy who can return some punts, doesn't return kicks as much, but can return punts and does a nice job for you. Number 2 guy is Marlon Williams from UCF. Had a nice year. Not exceptional, but a little over 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns. Again, a 6-foot guy, 215 pounds. Again, a 4th or 5th round talent, but a talented kid that's under the radar right now. And I like the smaller school kids. And I do. I think that if anybody can go watch the guys that play at LSU and Alabama, and Michigan, Notre Dame, these guys are the ones that are going to make or break your draft as far as I'm concerned. You get these guys that play in smaller schools, that's where you really get your value at. My 3rd guy is Marquez Stevenson from Houston, 6 foot, 190, 29. Only had 20 receptions this year, then only played, I think, in like 4 games. And I'm not sure if that was because he opted it out or if he just decided that or he got hurt a little bit. But his 2018 season had over 75 catches, over 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns. 2019, 52 receptions, 907 yards, 9 touchdowns, average over 17 yards a reception. Again, a nice football player. My 4th guy is Austin Watkins from UAB. This guy's like almost 6'2", 210 pounds. Again, this year didn't have as good a year as he did in 2019, but it's hard to tell, man. This is a funny year for guys because if guys got a little bit of a cold, they just didn't play. Yeah. Or they felt like, I'm not playing for anything. I'm just going to decide that I'm going to opt out. Not defending them opting out. I think if you start a season, you should finish the season. But again, it's a different animal. It's hard to judge. I'm sorry. It's hard to. I don't want to judge kids. I mean, because they're doing what's best for themselves. And we talked about this before. These guys are making business decisions, and I don't mess with other people's business, man. It's what he wanted to do for himself. So, correct. And the last 2, I have two more guys. Rico Busby from Hawaii. I got Mike Strachan from Charleston. I'm going to go a little bit quicker because, again, I had a 5A and a 5B. But I like a lot of these kids. Michael Strachan from Charlton is a 6'4", 225-pound guy who, again, opted out for this past season, but in 2019 had 78 receptions, 1,300 yards, and 19 touchdowns. Average almost like 19 yards a reception. So, again, very deep wide receiver class. I mean, again, I can't wait to hear Ben's list, so let's go there.
Definitely. I want to point out Austin Watkins from UAB, Ray. That I love him. He was one of the guys that I also seen at the Senior Bowl. But I was watching him before even the Senior Bowl, and I was just like, this guy is a big body guy that nobody's going to talk about because he went to UAB, which is not a big school. But I think that he's going to be very productive in the NFL, I believe. Our guy Juan also says Dwayne Eskins from West Michigan, low radar, small school wideout. I totally agree with that. He's one of those guys that he's going to be one of those guys that in the same tier as I think Austin Watkins as well. Ben,
I could have had another 5 guys if you wanted to Jerome, but
no, Ray, we don't need to go to 8 to Z on the receivers, right?
I know.
All right, Ben, who you got, man?
Oh, Ray, you're in luck because 4 of the guys on my list are different than yours. So I'm just gonna keep adding to that list. And I'm not upset that you said his name, but I was really hoping to get Mike Strachan to myself. But I'm happy you said his name because I'm big on him too. He's on my list. But so the first guy that I got on my list, someone just put a comment in on him. It's Dwayne Eskridge out of Western Michigan. And I think he's one of the more interesting guys coming out of this receiver class because he's someone who over the past couple of years has split time at defensive back and at receiver, just based on, what was the need for Western Michigan. There were a lot of injuries they had. So he comes into this draft with a really interesting mindset that he is going to be anticipating a little bit more what the defensive back's going to be doing. And that means that his route running is incredibly polished. He's able to get guys off their angles. He's able to use the right kind of fakes to make sure that defensive backs are not going to know where he's going. He's got incredibly strong hands, and he's capable of playing both on the inside and the outside. And then one more thing I really like about Eskridge is that he's a special teams beast. He's able to return kicks and punts. And not only that, but he's been really good on the Western Michigan special teams units in terms of, coming in to get tackles on kickoffs or punts, blocking. And that also, he's really good at blocking for running plays on the outside too. I've seen a couple plays on film where he just, lays guys out, just absolutely devastating on the outside. The next guy that I'm going to mention is Cade Johnson out of South Dakota State, another Senior Bowl participant. He's a little bit smaller. He's 5'10", 180, but he's a good proactive athlete. And he's got incredible speed and short area agility. And so I think he's going to be really valuable in the slot when he gets up to the NFL. He's not going to be the greatest run blocker at all, just because of what his frame is. But he is really shown the ability to be able to get open quick in the slot. That first step off the line, he's able to create that quick separation, then use his speed to just extend that lead on that defensive back. And then he also adds extra value as a kick returner as well. The next guy that I'm going to talk about is Jalen Darden out of North Texas, another one of these smaller guys, only about 5'9", 175. And interestingly enough, he actually dropped about 15, 20 pounds coming into this previous season. And I think he really did that to make sure he's a mainstay in the slot and really pick up a bunch of speed and agility. And he really did that. He had 19 touchdowns in 2020. He's explosive, and I think he really fits into what we've seen a lot of these more modern slot weapons become. A guy that maybe you could get him in round 6, round 7, and a guy that I think could provide value even from day one for some NFL team. Like Ray said, Mike Strachan, I discovered him this week when I was prepping for today, and I watched some of his tape, and the guy is he just powers over everyone and towers over everyone too. He's able to get up. He's able to get balls with his hands. He's really strong. He comes down. His footwork in the end zone especially is immaculate. And he'll obviously need some more coaching to get his route tree more developed, get some better footwork. But for some team looking for a really big body, just plug in there on third down or in the end zone or near the end zone, he could be your guy. He's gonna be taller and bigger than most of the corners and safeties in the league. So he's going to be someone who you're really going to be able to target down there. And then the last guy that I'm going to talk about in this section is Donnie Corley out of Texas Southern. He's a decently sized receiver, but he has a lot of the traits that you're really looking for. He's 6'2", 190, so he pretty much fits that mold. But his explosiveness is what's really jumping off the page for me. He's able to really, like I said, with a bunch of these other guys, create separation right from the line and really extend that, and especially on these cuts. When I was watching his film, the way he was able to plant his feet and use head fakes a lot too, he's really good with those. He's able to just fake these guys out and especially get some extra space along the middle and on those double moves on the outside. I think he's going to continue to improve with more coaching and finding where he fits best in whatever scheme he's a part of. But strong hands, large catch radius, and he really uses his body well too to get positioning on these defensive backs.
Great list, man. You point out some great guys in there, and these guys are, like Ray said, he can list a whole bunch of other small school guys. There's a lot of talent, man. And it's funny because the small school guys, they get buried under the sand because they don't get the eyes they deserve sometimes, and it's just like these guys are very talented guys, or you're gonna hear their name in the NFL, and it might not be number one or number two receiver, but a lot of these guys are great slot guys. A lot of these guys are going to be very special in the return game, or even some common role on special teams. So I think that you can find a guy that can definitely contribute on your team any point of this draft. I really do, and you might find that diamond in the rough.
Yeah.
And I think what also really. Go ahead, man.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that also just really speaks to how special this class is, because I think all of us could probably name off 10 to 15 more small school guys, in addition to the 10 to 15 more, Power 5 guys that we were talking about. And just in the last few years, I don't remember seeing this many receivers that I am saying to myself, they should really get taken. They should get taken off the board on one of the 3 days. I'm sure a lot of these guys won't, but I think this class is just really special, really deep, and I'm excited to see where the chips fall in April with them.
Definitely. So Juan says that he's scared that the Eagles may miss out on one of these somehow. Cough, fire Harvey, cough. If you guys already know who I am and how I feel about the Eagles, we can talk about this all day. We can have our own podcast just talk about the Eagles situation. Myself, and we're gonna get a little bit into that in our next session. One, so we'll discuss a little bit about that. And then what that next session is the best fit game. I love this game. It's my favorite part of the podcast because we get to see where you guys think a player can fit into. And I like to, mess you guys up, especially Ray. I like messing him up a little bit. So let's get right into it. And we're gonna start off with Ray because this is Ray's favorite team. We're gonna start off with the Dolphins. The Dolphins need a wide receiver. They got, they have some good, a lot of good number 2 guys. I think they need a stable number 1 guy. The Devontae Parker, he looked like he could have been a number 1 guy, but he kind of regressed last year. And that might have been from a little bit of the QB play itself. But Red, who do you think fits in as a Miami Dolphin for the 2021 season?
Jalen Waddle. Speed. Like you said, they have some nice possession guys down there now. Yeah. Devontae Parker is a possession receiver. His biggest problem is he can't stay healthy. I mean, he had 2 years ago, he only missed 2 games. This past year, he missed 6 games. Before that, he only played 10 games in 3 years. So he's always hurt, but he's a very good possession guy. Yes. If you put someone on the outside of him that can run and take some of them quarterbacks away from the line of scrimmage, he's going to be better. And Jalen Waddle is a perfect fit for Miami. They need speed at wide receiver. So Jalen Waddle will be my number 1. If honestly, last week we had the mock draft and somebody had Miami taking Devonta Smith in the third with the 3rd pick. Yeah, okay. I thought it was them, but I wasn't 100% sure. I don't think that will happen because I think they may take a wide receiver in the 1st round. But if I were them and Penei Sewell was there, I would take Penei Sewell. If the Jets for some reason don't take a cornerback and they take Penei Sewell, I want to move down and take Waddle with like the 6th or 7th or 8th pick.
All right, Bill, what do you think about? What do you think the Dolphins would do? I know you had your mock draft earlier, but who do you think the Dolphins can fit as a wide receiver for them?
I agree with Ray. I think Waddle Waddle or Smith, I think, have got to be two of their top guys on their board right now, just in terms of complement to Devontae Parker and the rest of the offense they have there. But the only thing with Waddle, and the reason why I did go with Devonta Smith initially in that mock draft is, and Ray kind of touched on a little bit, Devontae Parker has been injured a lot recently, and Waddle's coming off of an ankle injury in college. I haven't personally heard too much concern about that in the draft community in terms of his injury, but I think Devonta Smith, a guy who has proven time and time again to be on the field constantly and to always produce, that's why I think he might have been a little bit more of a fit for the Dolphins, but I really don't think you can go wrong with either of those guys. Speedy guys, they're going to get open. Give Devontae Parker some room to get open on the outside and deep. So I think both of those guys are good fits. And then another guy that I think could fit really well with the Dolphins in a later round, in one of the guys that I talked about from my small school, is Dwayne Eskridge. He's another one of those guys that is going to take some of the attention away from Devontae Parker and find a little bit of the soft spots in the defenses and hopefully spring his other guys up for big gains.
Definitely. Our guard Juan wanted to say that he thinks Kadarius Toney can be a great physical on the outside, give great balance in the passing game, demand with Parker. Ray, I'm gonna ask you first. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that. I think Toney could help him. He's a guy with top end speed. I think that he's more of a day 2 pick, though. They won't take him in the first round. Honestly, I like Rondell Moore. If he were there in the second round, he could help Miami with the slot guy. He could play outside. He could help in the return game. And if you guys have not seen this kid, he is jacked right now, man. He's put on 10 pounds of muscle. He looks more explosive than he did 2 years ago. So I think Miami needs – Devonta Smith will be fine. If Miami moves down and they want to take Smith in the first round, like I said, 6, 7, or 8, that's fine. But they do need to get someone with more top-end speed than that.
What do you think, Ben?
I'm actually going to disagree with Kadarius Toney to Miami, and simply because I think if he goes to Miami, his skill set is not going to be as taken advantage of as he might on another team like the 49ers or the Packers, who run a lot of those motions, those misdirection plays. So I think I'd rather see Toney go to one of those teams because I think his skill set will be able to reach its potential. But again, top end speed, going to open up the field. So he'll be good on the Dolphins. I just don't think it's the best place for him.
Definitely. Well,
I agree with what Ben just said, though. I think that Toney is one of them guys that you need to put him in motion.
Yeah.
Keep cornerback's hands off of him. Let him get a free release at the line of scrimmage. I agree with that 100%. I just think if he were there as a second or third round pick, Miami could take him. And the thing people need to understand, Miami's offense is going to be different this year. They got rid of Chan Kelly. They need to run more motion stuff with their receivers to take advantage of what Tua does. Hopefully.
Definitely.
Right.
All right, let's stay in the division. We're gonna go to Juan's favorite team now, the Jets. Now, Ben, I want you to give the Jets a receiver. I said they decide not to get a quarterback in the first round. Who would be a best fit for the Jets?
I think in terms of, or would you say if they're picking receiver first round?
Yeah, or maybe trade down.
I think if they trade down and he's still there, I think Jalen Waddle will fit them really well. They got a guy like Rashad Bateman and Jamison Crowder, who are a little bit of those bigger guys who are going to play on the outside. And I think Waddle will be a good complement to them also, just because it's likely that the Jets are, if they're getting a receiver and moving down, they're probably not taking a quarterback first round. So getting Sam Darnold, another guy who's just going to be open all the time, is going to be huge. But if Jalen Waddle's not there, I think another guy that could be really good, and we talked about him earlier in the podcast, Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's just going to be another guy who is going to be decent in the run game and help you out there, but also someone who's going to work the middle of the field and really just be open a lot for whatever quarterback, because whoever the quarterback is in New York next year, he's going to need help. It's either going to be Sam Darnold, who has not excelled in the past, or it's going to be a new guy who's new. So I think getting guys, especially for the Jets, that are going to get open and going to be easy targets for these new or struggling quarterbacks is going to be key for them.
All right, awesome. Juan says, "Give me Fitzpatrick." He loves Fitzpatrick. He got to see him at the Senior Bowl as well. And also that he said, "Release Perriman. It's been well-rounded dud." So, Ray, what would you give the Jets? I know they're in your division, so you don't want to give him a really good receiver. But hypothetically, if there was in your division, who would you pick for the Jets?
I would give them like a Rondo Moore. I think as a slot guy, they can help out their bigger receivers. Someone who could take the top end off of the defense, and who was a good solid route runner, but it can help them in the return game. The problem with the Jets is they need help everywhere. Mm-hmm. So like, Miami needs help at wide receiver. The Jets need help everywhere. So, I mean, you could give him anybody. I like Rashad Bateman, too. I think Bateman can help almost anybody. Yeah, I do worry about it. I don't think he doesn't seem to me like he runs as fast as people act like. Like, I heard a 4.39 for him. If that's the case, man, the kid's going to be a stud because he has the hands. He's big. He's physical. I love Rashad Bateman, but I would give him somebody who's a little bit more faster, like a Rondell Moore. I would. I think they need more speed, too.
Juan says, preach it. Preach it, Ray. But I will say this about the Jets. Do not sleep on Denzel Mims. The guy was coming on at the end of the year after his injury. Do not sleep on him. I wanted him for the Eagles. He went to the Jets in, I think, the late second round, I believe. I wanted him for the Eagles. He proved to me that he can become one of those receivers. So don't sleep on him. He didn't have the greatest start to rookie season. And again, he was a rookie and he was coming off an injury. Quarterback play was inconsistent, but he showed a lot of promise at the end of the season. So don't sleep on him. So I think like maybe having a speeder receiver to open up some things for him also would definitely help. So that just made.
No, I agree with you, Jerome. I think Denzel Mims is a nice player, but I think he's a possession guy. That's why I would want to give him to someone with some speed to play with. So
exactly, I agree. All right, let's move on to our next one. That would be the Patriots, which is Ben's favorite team. So Ben, this is your favorite team. I'll let you get the floor. Before we do that, Juan says him, Crowder, and Fizz or Waddle will make a well-rounded corp. I do agree. I still think you definitely need that speed. So I'll say Waddle before Fizz, but I definitely agree. So Ben, your favorite teams on the board. We were packing up the AFC West or AFC East rather. So who are you gonna give the Patriots to? Whoever's gonna be your quarterback.
That's the big question, really, right? But I think a guy like. First, just off the bat, Tylan Wallace could be a really good fit in that offense, I think. We've seen guys like him perform well. I mean, I remember just not a couple years ago, but maybe 5 years ago, we had Malcolm Mitchell, who was a great rookie wide receiver who ended up getting bogged down by injuries. But I do see a lot of similarities there, and I think he could work in a similar way in that offense. But also a guy like Kadarius Toney. Josh McDaniels hasn't had a very exciting weapon in too long. And I think with a guy like Toney, the offensive juices will start to get flowing, and I think they'll really be able to maneuver him around an offense really well. So Toney or Wallace, I think, are some great targets, even if the Patriots ended up trading down or in some later rounds. And then a guy like Elijah Mitchell, too, especially if Julian Edelman is not going to return, they're going to need to replace his production in the slot.
Awesome. Ray, what do you think?
I agree with Ben. I think that the Patriots like guys that are better route runners. I think they like guys that can do some things outside, inside. I think a Terrace Marshall from LSU would be great on that team. I think that, again, you can put him outside, put him inside, line him up in the slot. He can do a lot of different things for you. I think the dirty guys at Rashad Bateman, guys that run good routes, that have good hands. The problem with the Patriots is if you drop the ball, you won't see the field for the whole second half of the game. So you can't have guys that drop the ball there no matter who it is. So,
Totally agree. All right, let's get to my favorite team. Yeah, I got to Ray's favorite team. We got to Ben's favorite team. Let's get to my favorite team, the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, you all know the Eagles' woes. The last couple of years, we've been trying at receiver and trying at receiver and trying at receiver. It has not been going well. Give us a guy that will be stable for us. That will be the guy. Go.
I think the Eagles are a team that needs speed. If I would take, they're not going to need Jalen Waddle, but that would be a perfect fit. Amon-Ra St. Brown would be perfect for them. Somebody could take the top off the defense because the Eagles are a hard team for me to evaluate because they don't do anything consistently. No. They don't throw the ball consistently. They don't run the ball consistently. Their coach, I like Doug Peterson. I thought Doug Peterson was a good coach. I just don't. I have a hard time knowing what their offense is going to look like next year. To be honest with you.
What do you think, Ben?
I like Jamar Chase to the Eagles, and I know a lot of my friends down here at Temple like him too. I mean, I think mainly what the Eagles are really trying to do is fill that spot that I think J.J. Arcega-Whiteside was supposed to fill. A bigger receiver who's going to be able to get down the field and get open down the middle too. I think Chase is just going to fill that role really well. Great catcher, great route runner, decent speed. And then if we're thinking about later down in the draft too, I think maybe a guy like Sage Surratt could be a good fit for the Eagles, another bigger receiver who has shown that he's got the ability to get 2 feet down pretty much anywhere on the field. But again, like a lot of these teams that are going to be picking early in the draft and targeting receivers, it's all about guys that are just going to get open all the time for these inexperienced and young quarterbacks.
All right, before I get to my little tangent, Juan says over and under on landing Devonta Smith. What you guys think about that one?
The Eagles?
I believe so. Yeah.
I'm kind of confused by the question.
Yeah, I don't understand exactly what he means by that.
I think he means. Who do you think? What's the possibility of the Eagles getting Devonta Smith over anybody else?
You're going to drag him with the 6th pick? Very good. Yeah. They're going to use a 6th pick on him. But if they're going to wait, see, my thing is this: the Eagles are or have been with Doug Peterson a West Coast type team, a team that likes bigger, rangier receivers. What's his name? The Rat, Alshon Jeffrey. But with with them bringing the Colts offensive coordinator, the Colts tend to like smaller, speedier guys.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly what they're going to be looking for. If they want to use the 6th pick on Devontae, he'll be there. Yeah. Or are they going to use that pick though? Or are they going to take a quarterback? That's the question.
All right. Well, real quick, I wholeheartedly agree with Ben. I think we need that guy to replace Alshon Jeffrey. We got a bunch of speed guys. We got a whole bunch of speed guys last year. You got to remember, we also have Marquise Goodwin if they decide to keep him. So we got speed. We got smaller speed guys. We got flat guys. We don't have that big body guy. And I think that Chase is perfect for our offense. He's fast enough. He's big body guy. And if you remember, Jalen Hurts was doing really well when Alshon Jeffrey was in the game as far as passing. And I don't think that Jalen Hurts has the strongest arm also. So with that being said, you have all these fast, speedy guys already. Why not give him a big body guy where he can get those quick slants in anyway? And also, I think because of Nick Sirianni, I believe they're going to be running the ball more. I think that the Eagles are going to draft a running back, a second running back in the back end of the draft, or pick up somebody like a Marlon Mack that he worked with before, had that rotation at running back. I think they're going to be running the ball a lot more with the option routes with Jalen Hurts, and having a big body guy that can block on the outside while they're doing their thing inside will be great for the Eagles. So I think Chase would be perfect for us. That's just me. Juan says draft Pitts, convert him to wide receiver. Bingo, bango. I agree with the Pitts pick also for the Eagles, but I think also like we said earlier, keep him at tight end. Don't move him at wide receiver. But we will be talking more tight end next week. But with some time restraints, we're gonna go to our next teams. We're gonna go individual now to kind of cover some of these before we get off. So real quick, Ben, Giants, go.
Jalen Waddle, Tylen Wallace, maybe even Rondell Moore. But I think Jalen Waddle would be a great fit.
Okay. Ray, Packers.
Rashad Bateman, Rondell Moore, guys that are good route runners, because if you don't run good routes in Green Bay, you're not going to play.
I agree with that. Wow, I agree with that. Ben, Ravens.
Rashad Bateman and Terrace Marshall. They need a big guy to complement what they got with Marquise Brown. So I really like those two guys in those situations.
Totally agree. Ray, Washington.
Washington, man, that's difficult. Who's your quarterback going to be? I wish I knew that. I think that a Rashad Bateman, a Terrace Marshall, a Jamar Chase, a guy who's a little bit more big, a little bit more physical.
Okay. And last but not least, Ben, we got the Bengals. You know, they're losing a lot of wide receivers, AJ Green, a couple of depth guys. Who do you think will fit in for them?
I think Waddle could be a really interesting option for them. Just even with AJ Green going, you know, they have a lot of speedier guys that haven't panned out, I think, as they would have liked. Like a guy like John Ross. So I think Waddle could be good to come in with that. And then also a guy like Rashad Bateman, too, just to give Joe Burrow a bigger target.
Definitely. All right. Well, thank you guys for that. Ray, you got last thought before we get off?
I think that why not give him his LSU by Terrace Marshall back and see what he can do with him. And I think that going back to the Eagles, if I stay number 6, I would take Pitts if I'm not taking a quarterback. I think the idea of having Goddard and Pitts as a guy who plays in line and a guy you can move outside and really very, very, very guys that are you can almost do anything with them. And what is the one thing that Hurts does best? He likes to throw the ball in the middle of the field. Mm-hmm. If you give him 2 tight ends that can, especially one that can break a seam, like Pitts can, I think that would be best case scenario for him. And you can get a receiver later on down the road too to help out. Sure.
And again, this is a deep draft, so you definitely can. Let's, we'll definitely be talking about tight ends a lot more next week. So make sure you're checking us out next week, sometime Wednesday at 7:00. So guys, thank you so much for checking us out. We thank all of our people in the chat room chatting up with us. We do appreciate each person. Also, make sure you check out Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. We have all our player interviews on there. There's a lot of players that we talk about today or in the future, things like that we are, interviewing, and we would love you to hear their story, hear who they are as a person. So make sure you check that out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. We are on there. Just search Inside the Hatches. Also, check us out on all our social media. We got we are on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. Just look up Inside the Hatches or Inside Hatches for Twitter, where we have a lot of our great analysts talking about football. We do our daily draft prospect evaluations each week, so make sure you check that out as well. And it's also check out Yahoo.com. We are on Yahoo, so search Inside the Hatch on Yahoo. Make sure you like and subscribe on that as well, because we have some great videos, including Ben's breakdowns on players that are in the draft, and a couple of guys that we talked about today. Some of the small school guys he already broke down on there. So if you don't know about those players, go check that out. My man Ben has been doing some great stuff. But before we get off, Ben, I would love you to do your humble plug on your Twitter.
Of course, make sure to follow me at ITH Ben Schwartz, or you can search up Hashing Out the Draft. I've also got to make sure to give a shout out to my guy Jacob Keppen. He's been killing it on Twitter. Follow him at Inside the Draft. All
right, awesome. And Ray, any plugs for you, man?
You know what? I do get on to Ray Robb, Inside Hatches, ICH. So
Awesome. So check him out. Check all our guys out on Inside the Hatches on Twitter as well. They got some good perspectives. Don't talk to Ray about his Dolphins. Don't leave him alone by his Dolphins, because he will snap on you. No, I'm joking.
You guys would have loved. I did a mock draft for the Eagles the other day, because I did like every team. You would have loved my Eagles mock draft, dude.
Definitely gonna have to check out, Ray.
I'm telling you would have loved it. I'm telling you right now. Awesome. I had him getting Pitts. I had him getting Tony. I had him getting Davis Mills, the quarterback, in the 4th round. Dude, that's a kid that we've already gone over quarterbacks. I love Davis Mills, man.
I know, right? You definitely love him from Stanford.
Stanford guy.
Yep, definitely. But let's talk about that a little bit later, guys. But thank you guys for checking us out. We do appreciate each one of y'all coming on each week. So again, check us out next week. We're going to be talking about tight ends. If you're definitely interested in some of those guys, we all know Pitt's going to be the guy, but we want to highlight a couple of other guys that will be really good in this draft as well. So For your humble host, Jerome, that'll be me right here. We got my man Ben, and we got my man Ray over here. So thank you guys so much for checking us out, and we see you again next week.